This happened around Christmas. I live alone with my daughter in a rather secluded and heavily wooded area. We only have a handful of neighbors, mostly people that live in cottage type of houses like us. I work from home, so I only leave the property to drop off or pick up my daughter, and of course for groceries and stuff like that. Not much goes on in the area, which is why I allow my daughter to play in the woods with her friends nearby. As long as she comes home before the curfew I set out for her. One evening, however, something went wrong. My daughter wasn't answering my calls or texts. I was worried as hell. After the recent snowfall, I suspected her and her friends were just trying to push their luck with the curfew. I sat out on the front porch, half pissed off and half worried to death, waiting for her to come home.
Hey, you're late!
I know, Dad. I'm sorry. I just lost track of time.
How do you lose track of the sun?
Well, actually, we were inside mostly.
Inside? Whose house was it? I want to know who to call.
It wasn't anyone's house.
Then where were you?
You're not gonna believe me, but we found a real-life gingerbread house in the woods.
What?
There was even a gingerbread man living inside it. We asked if we could play in his house and he said we could, but only has his fairies. So, we dressed up as fairies and then played inside for like 3 hours.
And during all this time, you didn't think to look at your phone even once?
Well, the gingerbread man said fairies aren't supposed to have phones.
You're getting too old to be this bad at lying. Just get inside before you freeze to death.
Obviously, the whole gingerbread bullcrap seemed a little far-fetched. Over the course of the rest of the night, I pressed her about it, yet she stuck to her guns. Eventually, I just went along with it, but it never sat right with me. I just didn't want it to blow up into a whole thing she would end up hating me forever for. The very next evening though, when she brought it up again, I was not going to let it slide. Interestingly, she told me about it beforehand as if she was asking for permission to go to this alleged gingerbread house. Even though it was a little later than I usually let her go out, I decided to agree to it, just to see where it led. When she left, I secretly followed her. At first, she went down the same old path towards the neighbors, but after she met up with her friends, they took an odd turn. It was down a trail that I was not familiar with. It became narrower as the evening turned darker. Then suddenly, the girls stopped. Quickly, I hid behind a tree before they spotted me. When they started talking again, I took a peek, and sure enough, in spite of everything I was thinking, there was an honest-to-God, real-life gingerbread house right there, in the middle of the woods, 10 feet off the ground, but built like something straight out of a fairy tale. I couldn't believe my eyes, but my astonishment was far from over. Standing up under the house, the girls dragged a box into the open. From it, they pulled out cheap fairy costumes and put them on. Then, they started climbing up the ladder to the entrance. I couldn't get a good look at them from the ground, but someone opened the door for them. Then they disappeared inside. At this point, I was so freaked out. I felt like I didn't have a choice but to see what was going on in there. So I got out from my hiding spot and started making my way up. As I climbed the ladder, I could hear the girls cheering and shrieking like they were playing, but there was another voice in there, and for the first time, I started to think this gingerbread man might actually be real. However, once I got up on the porch and peered through the window, I saw a very different sight. There was but one tiny room, covered wall to wall in photos of girls just like my own. She and her friends were standing in the center of the room in their fairy outfits, not standing but posing for someone in the corner. And who else could it have been but a fat old man in a dingy gingerbread costume, taking pictures of them. When I realized what had truly been happening the whole time, I lost control and attacked the bastard.
You piece of shit! Stop! Stop! It's just pictures! That's bullshit! I'll kill you!
Once I exhausted myself beating the brakes off that sick freak, I used my last remaining energy to restrain him until the police arrived. It only took them one look to know what was up. Then they arrested him. He was charged and convicted, but probably for only a fraction of the despicable things he did in that so-called gingerbread house. I'm glad that man's horrible trap is no longer endangering anyone, but I just wish it could have been stopped before my daughter got caught up in it. Till this day, I wish I could have kept her away from ever going in there. A secret gingerbread house deep in the forest sounds like something from a fairy tale, but investigators in Seattle say the one they found was anything but. Now, 56-year-old Daniel Wood faces charges of possession of content of young individuals. an employee for Washington's Natural Resources discovered bedding, food, and a large amount of disturbing explicit content in the treehouse cabin in the Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. This set off a months-long investigation that eventually led to Wood. Forest Service employees had known about the treehouse for about 7 years, but nobody knew exactly who had built it. The last time it had been inspected was nearly 3 years ago. Apparently, it looked like a gingerbread house on the outside. The cabin was dark brown in color and built approximately 8 feet off the ground. There was a porch around the structure, a front door, and windows on the side, as well as a pitched roof and a ladder from the ground to the porch. But when the employee looked inside, he found something startling. On all 4 walls were framed pictures of fairy-like figures, or of what appeared to be younger individuals. The employee took some of the photos to show to law enforcement, and then returned with a detective who then found an envelope that contained more disturbing images, along with an SD card uncovering even more images on it. Eventually, investigators were able to match Wood's DNA to samples collected from a paper cup found in the cabin. Woods was charged accordingly.
Every year I would drive out of town to visit my relatives for Christmas. The house was about an hour-and-a-half drive. To be honest, I was used to the drive, but the last time I went, I dealt with the heaviest snowstorm of my life. During the middle of the day, I could barely see past my headlights. Then, on some random stretch of road in the middle of goddamn nowhere, my car broke down. I pulled over and tried restarting it, but I got nothing. I stepped out and popped the hood open, but I couldn't see what was wrong. I didn't have any phone service either, and as long as I waited, nobody came down the road. Already running out of options, the sun began to set on me, and I became desperate as hell. I looked into the woods, searching for a driveway, a mailbox, anything. There was something out there, a faint, flickering red and green light. I knew I could still reach it, so rather than risk freezing to death in my car overnight, I headed for the lights. Of course, they turned out to be deeper into the forest than I anticipated. It was too late to turn back though, so I pressed forward. I sincerely hoped I was not heading for some empty industrial building, but when I finally came to a clearing, I was pleasantly surprised. In my hour of need, I had stumbled upon a gingerbread house. It was the nicest one I'd ever seen, as decorated as any miniature, but life-size. And there were lights on, too. Given how secluded an area I was in, it seemed like luck was on my side. With a numb, nearly frostbitten smile, I knocked on the door.
Wow! I can't believe it!
What do you want?
I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you a real gingerbread man?
Piss off!
Wait, I'm sorry. That's not why I'm here. I need help. Really, my car broke down on the road up there and I'm freezing to death. I just need to borrow your phone or get a lift or anything you can do to help me, please.
You think people just do things for free out here?
Well, no. I mean, I'll pay you if you want. I really need your help. All right. Here, that's all the cash I brought for my trip. $200.
All right, get inside.
Oh, thank you.
But don't touch anything! The gingerbread man living in that house looked like the real thing, but he had none of the jolly attitude. Still, he let me into his house before I froze to death, albeit with some strict stipulations. I was allowed to sit by the fireplace and warm up, and that was it. Meanwhile, the gingerbread man made me hand over my keys, offering to go out and fix the car by himself. Understandably, I was hesitant to let go of my keys, but I figured since I was going to be alone in his house, it wouldn't make sense for him to steal my car. After stashing my money away, he went out in the snowstorm and started making his way to my car. At first, I obeyed the gingerbread man's rules. I sat by the fire and warmed up. But after some time, I got nosy and decided to explore his house. I figured he was at my car, still figuring things out. Eventually, I could no longer resist the urge, so I got up and crept down the hallway. I wanted to peek behind its doors and uncover the secrets of this gingerbread house. If I didn't leave a trace, I could sit back down at the fireplace before the gingerbread man got back.
I'm sorry, I
I
didn't...
thought I told you to stay put! Ah! Thanks for giving me an excuse to give you my candy cane, kill you, and make sure nobody ever finds out. Every Christmas, I can't stop thinking about something that happened to me around this time of year. It's the most infuriatingly terrifying thing I have ever went through as a deputy. A life or death experience with a psychotic gingerbread man. I don't call him that because he had some obese obsession with cookies or because his house was made of sugary cardboard. I call him that because of how he taunted us with that damn nursery rhyme. I'm the gingerbread man. Catch me if you can. We've been after this guy for weeks. It was December, or as some people say, robbing season, so burglaries were up, but not like this. We had a string of devastating home invasions, dozens of families and livelihoods destroyed, terrorized by a burglar who seemed to care more about traumatizing people than stealing their belongings for money. At one point, we thought we had him cornered. We studied his habits, found a vacant home, staged it as the perfect bait. The second he broke into the property, the deputies on watch called us in. Half the force came to surround the house. I parked on the street corner just down the block, near a patch of trees. I listened to the radio as the first deputies charged in, hoping to catch him by surprise. But then, the bastard weaseled out of the house. Seconds after hearing the call out, I saw the perp fleeing. He was headed for the woods, so I got out of my car and chased after him. I was the closest one to him and the faster runner on the force, so I caught up to him just as he cut in between the trees. I wasn't letting him out of my sight. I knew he'd been running for longer than I had, so I just had to wait for him to get winded. Then I had a chance. As soon as he started to slow up, I went through my options. I could shoot him, but even after what he'd done, did that make it okay for me to take his life? I could tase him, but if he remained a moving target, my chances of hitting him with a shock were even worse than with a bullet. Finally, when he got within arm's reach, I just grabbed him. I took hold of his elbow as it swung back and I yanked it. He tripped, fell into the snow, and I immediately crashed on top of him. I thought for sure I had him. I thought there was no way he had it in him to keep going. "Stop! You're under arrest! I'm the gingerbread man! Catch me if you can!" Suddenly, his arm slipped out of my hands, and that's when he started using my face as a punching bag. He attacked me with everything he had, and even whipped me with some tree branches nearby. And then, out of nowhere, the perp charged and immediately landed another hit, and then another, until I staggered backwards, trying to regain my equilibrium. But the next thing I knew, he was on top of me. In an instant, the odds turned against my favor, and now I was struggling to keep him from doing me in for good. His hands went to my holster. I felt him pull at it, trying to get the gun out. I put both hands and everything I had to keep him from taking it. Finally, I heard the shouting and footsteps of the other deputies pursuing us. Back up. The perp heard it too. and he gave up on trying to take my gun. He gave one last smug look before getting off me and running deeper into the forest. Then, a moment later, the others arrived. Someone stopped to help me as the others remained in pursuit. While badly beaten, I was able to get to my feet and rejoin the search effort. After that, the evening continued to devolve. We chased after him, fighting through a maze of trees, and then the storm rolled in. The snow buried our boots, and the freezing wind froze us to our cores. Not even the helicopters, with their blinding spotlights, could catch a glimpse in the flurry of manic weather that hindered us. The bastard got away, and then to add insult to injury, he posted that infamous message on Facebook.
They call me the Gingerbread Man. Catch me if you can. I'm running as fast as I can.
We were humiliated, but none worse than me. We mobilized even stronger as soon as the weather cleared. It took a few more days, but that bitter sting of a failed sting operation wouldn't let us rest until we caught him. At last, we tracked him down to a sinister hideout, an occupied home which he had broken into but seemingly never left. We surmised he must still be hiding somewhere in there, lurking in some dark corner. With a chip on my shoulder, I was among the team that found him in the attic. There was nowhere for him to run then, and I wasn't alone either. In the face of our overwhelming numbers, he gave up without any more fighting. Yet, he wouldn't stop smiling at me. I'll never forget that look on his face, the face of the Gingerbread Man. The Gingerbread Man is a children's story about a cookie that runs away from those who try to eat him. But in this case, police say they've caught the real Gingerbread Man, a Pittsburgh area burglary suspect who referred to the nursery rhyme in taunting authorities who couldn't catch up to him. Police say 25-year-old Heath Emery Miller was trying to hide in the attic of a home where police found him on Wednesday. Emery is wanted on several warrants for multiple burglaries. On Monday, he escaped into the woods after police thought they had him cornered. At night, Miller posted on Facebook, saying, "They call me the Gingerbread Man. Catch me if you can. I'm running as fast as I can." Miller was arrested and charged accordingly.